everyone. For today's meeting, we will have public comment where we are joined by Interim Vice President of Finance, Rita Rin. We'll then have verbal reports from our governing board. We'll have voting items, which include some confirmations, the senator attendance policy, and a minor update to the programmatic and operating budget from last Senate. Finally, we don't have any discussion items. We'll have a few announcements. So to start off with public comment, before we get into our guest presentation, are there any other members of the public who would like to speak at this time? All right, seeing none, I will invite up Rita Rin.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for including me this evening. I am honored to be here. I am, as I said, the interim vice president for finance, but I am a longtime employee of the university. I've been here almost 26 years now, and so I will try to quickly go through some information with you this evening and try to stay out of the weeds too much. I have been in budget my entire career here and love the budget. I'd love to talk about it. And so I will try not to bore you too much with the nitty-gritty this evening. So let's see. There. All right, so I was asked tonight to give you guys a general overview on where our budget is, the general status, as well as the impact of state funding, the impact of all the federal funding changes, and some other general updates. And so I wanted to set the stage a little bit with what we are working on over the next several years. We have a financial sustainability plan that basically has identified 3 pillars for being able to solve our structural deficit over the next 5 years. Those 3 pillars are growing enrollment and our net tuition revenue. We're looking to retain more students, and through retaining more students, we will grow that enrollment, as well as you all have heard very publicly about the size of the incoming freshman class at the Source campus, as well as at all of our regional campuses. So you're seeing a slight increase in students across all of our campuses. You see there on the right side of the screen that over the next 5 years, we do plan to grow enrollment by about 4,000 students. Again, that's through new students as well as retaining more students. So we do a lot of work to bring all of you in, and we really want you to stay and complete your degrees, and so through retaining more students, we grow our enrollment in total. Second pillar there is our resource reallocation. If you have heard about our rescission plan, that's resource reallocation. What we are doing is we are cutting, in essence, across the board of our units, and then we're reallocating those funds to our high priority areas. So those areas that are dealing the enrollment growth are getting additional funds, and it's basically right-sizing the budget for those specific areas. The last pillar there is shared services. We are looking to consolidate efforts wherever possible and find operational efficiencies. This is something that should be ongoing even after we get to fiscal year 30. We do hope to continue to do this. There are a lot of opportunities at this university to be able to find efficiencies and find the best way to execute all that we have to do, and so we will continue to do that, and that will help us to balance our budget over the next 5 years. So let's talk about fiscal year 26. So you, I'm sure, all heard about the large deficit that we took to the board in June. If you didn't, I'll remind you, it was $37.9 million. That's what we call a paper deficit, not a cash flow deficit. When I say a paper deficit, it means that at the bottom line of our operating budget, we have to show $37.9 million in the hole, but we have fund balance, or what many of you see as your savings account, set aside, that we have cash in those accounts that we can utilize to fill that gap. But as you all know, when you spend that money down from your savings account, that's one-time funding. It can Band-Aid the problem for 1 year, but once you spend it, it's gone. And so it doesn't solve any problems. It is just being used to bridge us through to future years and that financial sustainability plan until we can permanently solve those budget problems. And so you see there on the right-hand side some of the options that we talked about in the summer. The tools is what we called them, that we gave to faculty and staff to be able to find ways to reduce their spend or grow their revenues. When we presented this budget to the board in June, leadership basically came to the conclusion that we did not want to draw down our savings account to the tune of $37.9 million, that was too much to draw down in one particular year. We wanted to go back, sharpen our pencils, and find a revised plan, or come up with a revised plan. So in July and August, we had a very busy summer. We asked every single unit to re-budget and to utilize these tools that you see here listed and any others that they could come up with in order to reduce their overall spend or find additional revenues. At the same time, we reminded everyone that there continues to be a funding risk from the state, and that at any point in time, the state could determine that they want to reduce our state funding. They can reduce that state funding by up to 5% without legislative approval. That's always a risk in our budget. If they should choose to do that throughout the year for any given reason, then that would create an additional reduction in our budget, and so we just continue to remind people of that risk. Just to go through some of the other tools, we talked about personnel optimization, reduction plan. Were there positions that we were looking to backfill that weren't required or could be executed in a different way? Were there temporary positions that did not need to be renewed? We were scrutinizing and continue to scrutinize every single position. I sit on that committee, and it is a rigorous discussion that we have every other week. We look at every single search and determine exactly why it needs to be refilled and whether there's going to be a return on that investment through revenue, or what exactly it is accomplishing, that, you know, what is driving that specific need for the refill of that position. So it's probably one of the most rigorous committees that I've sat on. It's not fun. People don't like you when you tell them no, but unfortunately it's something that we have to do at this point in time to be able to think outside the box and come up with different solutions. Some of the other things listed there: pausing non-essential travels, a no-brainer, looking at various university-wide events and other activities where we're spending funds to determine do we want to continue those things. Reviewing outside contracts, purchase service contracts, increasing utilization of foundation funds, that's our donations that we receive, and then if nothing else, utilization of that fund balance. One thing I will tell you that is the guiding principle in all of this activity is the directive we gave to units was that we did not want students to be negatively impacted. So, you know, we weren't holding up students as any kind of sacrificial lamb and saying, you know, hey, we're gonna cut this activity or we're gonna do this and hold staff harmless and cause some kind of pain over here to students. That is not something that we would have allowed to happen. And so that has been the continuing guiding principle as we move through this deficit mitigation activity. I think I broke it. It's slowly coming up, maybe. I'm gonna let you fix it. It's not coming up here. What I'm trying to show you is the revised budget. So that $37.9 million, after all the work that happened over the summer, we have reduced that deficit down to $12.6 million. So we picked up about just over $25 million of revenue and savings to be able to get that deficit down a little lower. Here we go, we're back. All right, hopefully I don't break it again. Did I get something wrong?
No, nothing.
Okay, all right. Okay, so you see there at the bottom of the table there, the $12.6 million that I just referenced. Where did we primarily get that? We saw an increase in research dollars. You'll see there that grants and contracts other line that we did see that research pick up, so that helped us to the tune of $24 million there. That's covering expenditures that we thought that we were going to need to cover on other dollars. If you're aware of how unionized our workforce is at the university, it's just over 92% unionized. With unionized positions comes long notice periods, and so when funding instantaneously goes away, we still have to pay out employees through notice periods. Some of those employees have 1-year notice periods, so even if the funding goes away, we have to continue to pay them. Our budget, our original budget we sent to the board in June reflected that we were going to need to carry some salaries and wages for a period of time if research funding did not return. We are seeing some of that funding return. You see that pickup there in that grants and contracts other line. Another line that was significantly adjusted is that other revenues line. That pickup that we saw there is coming from the foundation. So thankfully we had a fantastic fundraising year last year, and we're continuing to see that increase year over year. We're bringing in additional dollars. A lot of those dollars are coming in the form of financial aid. So if you look at the bottom of that table there and you look at the financial aid other line, you see that there's an additional $10.9 million coming in financial aid. That's coming in from donors. So we just quickly talking about telling our Because of UConn story, and I'll show you a slide in a minute highlighting that, but every time you guys tell your story, your positive stories, that helps us to get more donations. Those donations help the budget, help the financial aid line specifically, and that's all great news to share. The other thing I would share on this slide is that we do still have deficits. Well, there's still a deficit in the current year, $12.6 million, that we're going to continue to work on to see if we can get that down to a balanced amount. If we cannot, we will utilize fund balance, that savings account, to be able to fill that gap for this one-time need. We will continue to use our financial sustainability plan in order to balance that budget by fiscal year 30. So by fiscal year 30, we plan to not use any fund balance in that year. We need to be able to live within the revenues that we are generating. We need to bring our level of expenditures within that amount, and that is our plan by fiscal year 30. This is just a quick snapshot. I was asked to show what's going on with state support. You can see there in that slide that in fiscal year 26, we did receive less state support than fiscal year 25. That's a significant hit. That's where we're needing to make up those additional revenues through our growth in net tuition revenue, through our growth in foundation funds. We're doing that, but it's been a slow process, and that's why you're continuing to see the deficit on the bottom line, is because we haven't filled that gap yet. In fiscal year 27, we expect that funding to go down another $15 million. That's the approved biennial budget by the state right now. We have an opportunity to go lobby the state again and ask for additional funding before fiscal year 27 starts. We've officially made that request for $12 million of additional permanent funding to be added back into our budget. If we are successful through the legislative session and through our discussions with the governor in getting that will help our budget significantly over the next several years. So that request is out there and will go to help us specifically with our financial aid support for students. Just want to briefly talk about the federal climate, the federal, the impact on the federal funding side. If anybody's watching the national news, you've heard what's happening. I don't need to fill you in there, but we'll share that as a result of some of the changes on the federal side, we are pivoting, as we do every 4 years when there's a new administration. We tend to pivot and realign our research priorities with the priorities of that administration and seek out research awards that are along those lines. So you see here on the slide how we're realigning our research federal priorities to try to get research awards in these specific areas of emphasis. But what's happening today? So as of October 8th, we've had, and I'm showing you a slide that's UConn and UConn Health. So this is not all impact here at Storrs. But in total, as of October 8th, we've had 63 terminated grants that are stopping $41.3 million in future work. That's not all impacting fiscal year 26, because if you're aware how research awards work, you might get a research award of $5 million this year, but your plan is to spend it out over the next 3 to 5 years. So any slowdown in new awards always has a lag in its impact on expenditures. And that's how we're seeing in that prior slide when I showed you those research spend was holding at a higher amount. That's because of positive award or positive work that was done in getting research awards over the prior several years. We've had multiple years of record numbers of research awards. You see that here in this bar graph. You see that in fiscal year 25, the awards went down, but it's going to take a few years before that expenditure level comes down because of that lag. But we do expect that it's going to come down. But as I said in the prior slide, we are focused on trying to increase that as much as possible. We've had a positive first quarter of this fiscal year. You see there in the bullet point that even though we had a drop of $54 million of new awards in fiscal year 25, that in this first quarter of 26, we're $10 million up over the first quarter of fiscal year 25. So that's positive. So perhaps our strategy is working. Our realignment of our priorities is working. Time will tell. So it's something that we're closely monitoring. Here's the Because of UConn story, right? If you have a story to tell that's positive, we would love to hear from you, right? We have launched this capital campaign, and we're 51% towards our goal at this point in time. We do believe that by fiscal year 30 that we will have not only reached but exceeded that goal of getting $1.5 billion. Every dollar we get into the endowment pays off long-term, building that endowment. We hope to build that endowment to $1 billion. We are seeing right now some of the gifts that are coming in the form of one-time funds. So it's helping our budget, and that Band-Aid that we're putting on our budget right now, those one-time spend, it's helping us right now. But we do want to stay focused on growing that endowment, because that's long-term investment, and that's much better for the budget in the long term. But there's some statistics there. I won't bore you with going through them, but positive news in total on the capital campaign. And then I would just leave you with, these are our general operational priorities. You've all heard about the strategic plan. Well, how do you operationalize a strategic plan? These are our priorities. This is what senior leaders, should have in their pocket as they are going through their, day-to-day. What do we need to be focused on as we make decisions? These are the 5 things that we need to be focused on, and the improvement and effectiveness of the entire university, improving our enrollment outlook through that, as I talked about, the retention of students, the growth in that first year student class, increasing our academic and research profile. That comes through in our results in our university rankings. It comes through in the, will we get an invite to AAU? Something that will help us to secure even more research grants or even more prestigious awards for the university that generate revenue that helps students. So anything we can do there will have a direct impact on students. Supporting the championship culture and competitiveness in athletics. We all know what athletics helps us do. They're our front porch, and it's not just a great experience for students, but it helps to get our brand out there, and something, it's a priceless amount of advertisement for the university, allows us to get our message out there about all the great things we're doing on the academic and research side, and so we are all partners together, and so the success of athletics helps the success of the rest of the university. And then finally, advancing that fundraising effort, as I just talked about. The more we can grow the endowment, the more we have long-term fiscal sustainability. So I'll leave it there, but again, I just want to reiterate, as we go through these priorities, it's always students first. It's what do we need to do to put students first and foremost in our priorities? How is this going to impact them in their day-to-day? And hopefully you guys are feeling that. If you're not, I'm sure you're conveying that to those who need to be told. You can tell me, and I'm sure you've met with lots of other senior leaders. But we want to hear back from you. If you know you're being negatively impacted, we want to hear that, and certainly we'll look into that. So I will stop there.
Are there any questions?
Hi, I'm Tanner. I represent. It turned off for a sec. I represent Hilltop. So I'm sure you and many other people heard recently, UConn's marching band was invited to perform in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade next year. I am, thank you. I'm wondering, are you guys committed to making sure that the marching band and other musical ensembles here on campus have the funding and have the resources when they represent our university at the football games, at exhibitions, at whatever it is they do?
Thanks, Tana, for that question. Absolutely, we are committed to supporting the marching band. There is a fundraising goal right now to raise funds for those new uniforms, but the uniforms are already being designed and they will be ordered. Whether the fundraising comes through or not, the university has committed to paying for those, whether the donations come or not.
I'm Jasmine for the minutes. So I am representing the Intercultural Greek Council, which are one of the councils that's part of the Center for Fraternity and Sorority Development. CFSD notified me that funding was cut for us to be able to be involved in NGLA, which is a very popular Greek event that happens annually, and we were gratefully able to go this past year in 2025, but unfortunately we're not able to go in 2026. So I guess my question is there any way that you guys are able to support us in other ways? I understand like cutting like specific types of funding, but CFSD, a lot of people join Greek life because they want to join that for that sense of community and engagement. So that was just my question.
Thank you. I can't speak to that specific reduction. I'm happy to look into it and find out why. If you could email me, my email is rika@uconn.edu. If you can email me your question, I'm happy to dig into that and see exactly why the funding was reduced.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Borough, representing the AACC. My question is kind of similar to hers, because a lot of Black orgs on campus said they experienced like a very huge cut on like their budgets, and because of that, they're not even able to like engage in like a lot of activities, like most of them national, most of them like in-state. And also another question that I had was, I heard that like I don't know if it's rollback money or like just money that rolls into like from one year into another was like taken from certain like centers, and that was kind of like a problem for us this year. And I was just trying to see if like in the nearby future, like could the centers get like those funds back, or they're just gone forever?
So I'll start with your last question. So the fund balance, the reserves is what we call it, the savings account. There were some funds that sat out there in certain units that they were centrally provided funds, that it was determined these were primarily non-academic areas, that the funds were swept. all the academic areas, and I'd have to look specifically as to what funds you're referencing, but all the academic areas were allowed to keep all of their savings and are carrying them forward. But the non-academic areas that had their funds swept, like my office, IT, public safety, facilities, any of those non-academic areas were not allowed to carry forward their savings. As far as the funding levels of the specific clubs, again, I would have to dig into the specific case to see, maybe to step back a little bit in that, there's only so much money, right, to spread around, and things get more expensive every year, whether it's the travel or whatever the event is that you're looking to participate in. And so sometimes it's not necessarily a cut, it's a funding, it's we only have this much funding, and because of inflation, that funding can only be spread to, in a certain way, and so it may result in, decisions made to fund one area or another differently in a given year. So I'd have to look to see exactly what happened there in your area, but, that could be what, was being grappled with, that the pot of funding was not growing and it needed to be spread differently.
Hello, my name is Smith. I represent the Transfer Student Association. I have two questions. My first question is, can you repeat again how much is in the reserve account? And also, can you say what were the previous research priorities under the last administration to better represent what is the shift to now under the new administration?
You guys got some tough questions tonight. I don't know the priorities off the top of my head. It's not my area, but I'm happy to dig out what those priorities were from the prior administration. I'm sure they're out there on their website somewhere, and so I can dig those out for you. Sorry, what was the reserve level? So we have about $200 million of, give or take, of reserves, sitting in the bank. Some of that funding is earmarked for capital reinvestment. So you think about your housing facilities, your classrooms. We are putting a chunk of that into capital reinvestment. Every year we try to set aside a certain amount of that. We have a $1.6 billion backlog of capital projects that need to be addressed. And so wherever we can scrape money, we will put it into capital. So it's not one of the things we like to cut, but if we need to, in order to balance the budget in any given year, it is an area that we have pulled back, and it is something that the president openly said in the summer, that we would reevaluate our capital projects and pause anything that was not critical or essential.
Hi, my name is Ana Clara, and I just wanted to ask, because you talked about increasing the enrollment throughout the years for 4,000 students. Is there a plan to accommodate those students? Because I know we're currently in a housing crisis. We're definitely in a housing shortage for current UConn students. So, is there a plan for accommodating that?
Absolutely. So, don't believe everything you read. We had plenty of empty beds this year. At Storrs campus in Stanford, in Hartford, we have empty beds right now. So we would like to grow enrollment to fill those beds. In addition to the empty beds that we have in university housing, we are adding additional beds in Hartford in the fall. This fall of 26, we're adding additional beds in Stanford in fall of 26. And we are looking at options in the next several years to potentially add more beds on Storrs campus that UConn would manage. In addition, if you guys are looking at what's happening over by the police station, is anybody paying attention over there? They're getting ready to demo.
I've heard about, I've heard that there are plans for development over there.
Yep, so there's another off-campus housing facility that's going up. It's another facility, it's owned by the same company that just put up the standard. If you guys have been down to see those nice apartments down there. So they will be constructing, I think it's about 700 more beds in that location right there on the edge of our campus. So we do believe that over the next several years, with all of the additional beds coming online in the various campuses, as well as in the community, that we will be able to house the students that we are growing our enrollment.
Hello, my name is Jordan. With the inflation and the deficit, do you see tuition and fees increasing over the next 5 or 4 years?
I'm gonna say yes. We don't have those exact amounts yet, but yeah, it's, inflation happens. The cost of things goes up. But I will say that the university is committed to, anytime we increase tuition and fees, that there is a increase in the financial aid bucket, which is why we look to at our net tuition number now as an area of growth, because we are putting significant funds aside into financial aid. But yeah, I mean, some of those fees that support your activities, you guys have asked for, increased amounts of activities or, excursions or what have you, and there's, an inflationary cost to that. You left, I was looking over here. There's an inflationary cost to doing all of those things, and so in order to manage that, we will need to propose increases in fees. I will share that it has not yet been decided exactly what that's going to look like for fiscal year 27, but we are planning to have that available for you all soon, and there will be town halls at the beginning of November to discuss what those proposals are.
Okay, for Rowan, for the minutes, so I was curious about, so the plan currently right now is to continue growth of enrollment, but I was curious about what more long-term plans would be like. What is that generally just the principal idea to continue growth of enrollment, or is there a plan to cut back eventually? And how do we, what is your understanding of the impact on students in the general consensus or on the student population, increasing enrollment and the effects that has on campus?
Sure. So yes, we do plan to increase enrollment by the amounts I showed there on the slide, about 4,000, and then we hope to stabilize at that point. We do feel that with our current resources across all of our campuses that we have some capacity, and there is a very large focus on growing a lot of enrollment at regional, specifically Stanford has been a large area of growth. Hartford has capacity for growth. Those are two of the areas of focus for that growth. We're going to do our best to accommodate that student growth in the housing that we have available. If not, we'll look to accommodate at off-campus. We are at the same time adding additional student support services to support that student growth, so that, as I talked about before, we can support increasing that retention and increasing the graduation rate.
Thomas McMillan for the minutes. Sorry to bring up housing again, but I myself was put on a wait list along with countless other students. If you look at social media on basically any website from last year, you will see countless UConn students complaining about being waitlisted. And on that wait list, it was an egregious amount of time where you get to the point where you basically have to sign a lease, or you will not find semi-reasonable afforded housing. how many beds are available and why are they available if so many people were put on that wait list?
Yes, so there's an first of all, I'm speaking out of turn here because I don't oversee housing and the whole process, but I can share with you what I know. So there is a process for guaranteeing housing for certain populations of students versus, you know, the upperclassmen are not guaranteed housing and they're often put on the wait list. When the new students that are guaranteed housing, when that all starts to shake out in the summer months and we determine who's actually coming and who's not, then that frees up beds, and then they start going through the wait list and offering up those empty beds to those students who are on the wait list. I do understand that there is a timing issue with, you know, wanting to lock in housing and, you know, various places. It is a complaint that we have heard that, you know, students want to know earlier in the summer whether they're going to get that housing or not, and we talked about adjusting timelines to be able to better communicate to students in the future. Right now, we have specifically at stores, I think we have around 500 empty beds. I'm just quoting a number off the top of my head, I think it's close to 500.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Horworth. I represent West. On student enrollment, I was the CAPS kid, so the Center for Access and Post-Secondary Success. And since enrollment is looking to go up, does this mean like programs such as CONCAP, Upward Bound, and the CAP summer program, which I was a part of 2 years ago, will that also go up for funding, or is that looking to be cut?
Yeah, so we've actually done very well in the student success area of generating additional industry support donations to help to grow some of those programs, and so we're going to continue to focus on that to help to grow. But yeah, the entire student success unit is growing along with the enrollment, and you know, we're fully cognizant of the need there. In order to increase that retention, we need to provide the student support services, and that is a primary goal of the president.
Hi, my name's Laura. You talk about new enrollment a lot, but what does increased retention of students entail? Is it more events, increased financial aid for current students? What's being done?
Yes, so multiple things. Some of it is financial aid, and that we were able to retain additional students this year through some additional financial aid, and some of it is small. Like a student was going to leave because they had $200 due on their fee bill, and for whatever reason that was insurmountable, and we find $200 that they couldn't fill, and they're willing to stay. So some of it is just really looking student by student, why are they choosing to leave? Some of it is retention academically, right? Are they struggling academically? Where can we provide additional supports in tutors, the Writing Center, Q Center, you know, we're investing in student success coaches. We're looking to standardize our advising to support students to, you know, try to figure out why is it that they're not staying. In addition, I know that they're talking about trying to be more proactive in working with students on their plans of study and in an earlier way, right? So reaching out to you to say, you know, hey, you have 6 classes left and you have 1 semester left. If you pick up an extra course in the prior summer or during winter intersession, you can still graduate on time. So can we proactively reach out to you and share those opportunities with you so that then you're not having to pay for a full additional semester. I just recently shared with somebody that, you know, paying for a course over summer or winter intersession is much cheaper than paying for a full additional semester. So it's something that, you know, if we can proactively identify something that is available in those off periods for you, and whether you can take it online or at one of our regional campuses or Source campus, you know, trying to identify those opportunities to help students so that we can retain them and then graduate them at a higher rate.
We'll go Serena.
My name is Sarita. I'm a senator representing international students. If enrollment is increasing by 4,000 students, are there any specific plans on hiring staff and faculty, such as professors, advisors, and other support staff to match that increase?
So I addressed this a little bit before, and that we're looking at shifting capacity around to where it's needed, that reallocation of resources. We have some areas that are underutilized and some areas that are overutilized, and so we're trying to shift around the resources, the financial resources, to get them into the right unit so that they can absorb the growth where it's happening and be redeployed more efficiently. As far as the faculty, we are, trying to identify where those needs are to meet the growing demands, and again, in those areas, whether we're having to add additional sections or courses, there's a whole team of people who do this as their full-time job, and balancing that to meet those needs. We're looking at class sizes, we're looking at, whether the classes are online or in person or hybrid. We look at, in those courses, do students do better in that particular course when it's offered online versus when it's offered in person or hybrid? And if students are not doing well in that course when we offer it online, then it's something that we're saying, okay, that's not effective, and we don't offer it online. So all of those things play into those decisions that are made for what's offered when. Thankfully, that's not part of my job.
Hi, my name is Caroline for the minutes. I was just wondering, going off of what you said, there's also a classroom and study space shortage on campus. So if we are switching classes to be in person because the online method is not working, and there's an increase of students and we're decreasing class sizes, is there a plan in place to develop more study spaces and classrooms on campus so that we don't run into that problem?
Yes, so I want to dispel the myth that we're short of classroom space. We have lots of classroom space that sits empty throughout the week, and so what we're trying to do is more efficiently utilize the space that we have so that we don't have classrooms sitting empty. But one classroom size that we do lack is we lack large classrooms, so we're looking at some options for if we had a class, for example, that we wanted to have 500 students. I'm not saying we are going to, but say we did, would we have a space to be able to offer a class of that size? So looking at options such as that. As far as study spaces, I don't know off the top of my head whether we're looking at additional study spaces. I've heard that there's a lot of space available in the library at all different times of the day to sit and study. So the dean of the library shares a lot of statistics with us, so I would suggest, hang out in the library. I know that's probably not where everybody wants to hang out, but I do know the student union gets full, and that's probably where most people want to be, but there are other spaces available around campus for study spaces as well. And if it's not a building that's your major, go into it anyway. If you're not a business major and you see space available in the business building, go use it. Nothing's keeping you out of those spaces.
Set up for the minutes. Hi, I just had a quick question. Are we 100% sure, or decently sure about the accuracy of the data of the people that go to the library? Because for the life of me, I have to go to each and every single floor to find the space to just sit and study. It is not an easy task to be able to find the space to study in the library. So are we sure that the data that the dean of the library presents is accurate? And,
Yeah, that's a valid
to be
question.
trusted?
I'm repeating information that's shared with me, so
Because
I can go back and question.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I'd love that. Yeah, and also, I was also wondering if it's possible to have I know there is the Wilbur Cross Library but there is, at least in my experience, there's a shortage of libraries that are like places that are designed for people to study. I know there's pharmacy building library, it's the Wilbur Cross, but yeah, like most of them are, for most parts during the week, are packed, like are full. So is that also being taken into consideration to perhaps like come up with other spaces, or maybe even build other spaces that are like for the purpose of being a library, like designated place for study, and not just a random classroom that people could go and just do work?
Yeah, I will have to go find you an answer on that one, because I'm not in charge of the space planning, but I can certainly go and inquire. But I do have a question for you guys. Just if you could show your hands, how many people like to utilize I'm gonna call them study pods, because I don't know what else you call them, the pods in the library? Do you guys utilize those?
They're always full.
They're always full.
When they are available, they're great. But there's like 4.
Okay. There's more than 4, but
Yeah, they're still always full.
so if there were more of those in like a student union or in other buildings on campus, would that be something that would be well received?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. That's all. I understand that, but a lot of people like to study individually, and that's why I was asking, yeah.
We'll go to Gabby next, and then we'll have to do our last comment.
Hi, Gabby for the minutes. So to note on those pod things that you're saying, those pods are not accessible. I'm in a wheelchair, and I don't know if you saw from my game, that's what I'm saying. So I can't use those at all. Most of the like individual study spaces, so if it's even like the ones that you can reserve, I have my roommate who has one for research that she like has access to, or something like a personal one. Those spaces though are not accessible. I can't roll through them. They're really, really narrow. I can barely get my chair through the door even, let alone to be able to sit comfortably in one to study alone and all that. But yeah, just a note. So even
No,
if
thank
they
you,
were
that's
added-
great feedback.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. We unfortunately do have to cap this discussion here because we have some other items on our agenda, and I don't want to keep everyone here until 9 p.m. Moving into our reports, we'll quickly hear from our governing board members, and we'll start with Caroline, Academic Affairs.
So academic affairs has been busy these past few weeks, primarily working on ideas for expanding dining access during final season, calendar reform, and then the building of our new sensory rooms. So for dining access, during committee last Thursday, we introduced the idea of providing student union flex pass meals to off-campus and commuter students during finals week in an effort to encourage on-campus studying and engagement. It's our belief that during this time of year, it can impose a financial and logistical burden on those students who could be focusing on their studies. And we want to provide a potential solution that would also not increase working hours for other student workers in the dining halls. For calendar reform, we have been collecting senator opinions on the current structure of our fall academic calendar in regards to reading days, Thanksgiving break, and the potential for a fall break. This week, my deputy director and I have drafted a sample survey of questions to be reviewed at committee tomorrow, because we meet on Thursdays from 6 to 7 p.m. in City Meeting 25. You guys should come. And then for the sensory room, I have a meeting scheduled tomorrow afternoon with the library to discuss the past sensory room line item in our committee budget and where exactly that money will be spent. So if you have any ideas, comments, come to committee tomorrow. Thanks.
Any questions for Caroline? All right, we will move into external affairs. Olivia.
Hi everyone. So external is currently in pop-up number 2 of the clothing closet.
that will be open, it opened Monday and it closes tomorrow. It's been open 12 to 4, second floor of the bookstore. And we still have the 11 credit system in place, but I'm currently working with the One Card office who controls the student accounts to add another 11 credits to each student account for our final pop-up this semester, which will be November 3rd to November 6th. So keep your eye out. Once I hear from them that they can add those additional credits, I will reach out to Comms, post an announcement. The idea behind this was we have the inventory to provide students with at least another full outfit, because also a lot of people have internships and jobs, so like one outfit is not enough. So that's kind of the reasoning behind increasing the credit amount for this semester. We also have early voting October 20th to November 2nd on the second floor of the bookstore where the clothing closet currently is, so we will be moving out of there for those 2 weeks. We will be tabling a couple times each of those weeks, so probably a total of 4 times, giving students infographics. We'll have the sample ballot printed out to hand to students, and we're just gonna try to encourage students to educate themselves on what a municipal election is, and if they're interested, then of course voting, and you can do same-day registration. And then finally, we are currently working on an off-campus housing survey to kind of gauge student experience so that we can post the reviews on the UConn off-campus resources website, as well as provide some information to local reps so that issues such as landlords being held accountable can be addressed. Are there any questions? Awesome.
Olivia, next up is Jabril and Student Services.
Hey everybody. So last few weeks have also been busy, just like the other directors. You guys can hear me, right? Okay. So we set up the RSVPs for the first cooking class for services went out yesterday, and all the reservation slots filled up in like an hour, so that was really cool. Me and Andy attended the first meeting for the Interfaith Council the university is trying to set up, and kind of giving ongoing feedback and being part of that and facilitating that to help dialogue get going at this university. We also have a meeting with the director of dining services tomorrow to talk about student involvement in the dining process, an advisory council, as well as accommodating dietary restrictions better. Let's see, what else? And then as well as the legal services project me and Amy have been working on, so the outreach has been going out. It's out on our social media. It's been getting emailed to some different orgs right now. Hopefully going out on some listservs as well soon to kind of get student input on this. And we're also in the process of sending out, what's the word, RFPs? RFPs stands for Request for Proposal to law firms to kind of gauge their services. I'm not too big on the technical jargon, but I know the ins and outs. So that's kind of everything big. Yeah, any questions? Awesome.
Next up, we have Ellen.
Hi guys, it's great to see so many faces tonight. I know it's hard to come out during midterm season, so I hope you're all doing well. But the last few weeks have been pretty relaxed for the judiciary. We haven't had any cases or hearings. We had a meeting on Friday, so that was good. Just kind of talking about how the next semester is going to look and that kind of stuff. And then we'll have another meeting this Friday, and I've mainly been working on drafting a transition policy to kind of standardize this onboarding process we have in USG for employees, as well as an MOU. So you all should be hearing about that hopefully at the next Senate. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
All right, next up is me. Nothing super out there in my world. Had a few additional onboarding meetings that spilled into last week. Other than that, I have been coordinating logistics for our sites for the rest of the fall and spring semester. Anyone have any questions? All right. Next up is Bill.
Senators. I don't have too much to report tonight, but I did want to give an update on Tier 2 funding. The funding staff has officially passed nearly $450,000 worth of funds and has been working very diligently to review and vote on as many requests as possible. So I just wanted to kind of give them a shout out for all the great work that they're doing so far. Additionally, my office has not really seen any PRs come through in the last 2 weeks, so not too much to worry about on the purchasing side of things, but we're looking forward to some big events coming up with the AACC and Rainbow Center, which will have some PRs involved, so that's exciting. And then I've been meeting with administration to discuss some of the structural concerns with the way the Tier 2 funding system works and how we can make it a more equitable resource for student groups. I'm hoping that with the help from DSA, Student Activities, Student Life and Enrollment, and the Rec Center, we can begin working towards a greater future for Tier 2 funding. And I'm happy to see all of you, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out.
Hey everyone, trying to make this quick. So an update on the immigration panel that we're planning for the spring. That will be either January 27th or 28th. We're currently working with Jorgensen now to solidify a date. And today, the Diversity and Outreach Commission discussed panelists, but we have not locked in all the panelists yet. That'll probably be done at our next meeting. As far as the cultural public market, that'll also be pushed to the spring just for PR purposes and weather. We plan to collaborate with at least 8 student organizations to distribute free food for students to cook or some pre-cooked food. Just to give students a taste of foods they wouldn't get regularly on campus. As far as the dental hygiene clinic, my deputy Anna is working right now. We're planning on using the Rome Commons ballroom instead of the room 304 or this ballroom because the dental clinic needs to keep the equipment in the room. They can't move it overnight, and we do still want to do 2 or 3 days so that it's fully accessible for students regardless of their class schedule. So we're currently working on that, and she'll be meeting with them tomorrow to solidify those plans. We have just submitted our first comm request for the Know Your Resources Wednesday collaboration with the comms team. This will basically just be us working with comms to distribute information about other administrators and offices on campus. So for example, this coming Wednesday, not today, but next week, will be Dean of Students of regular events and resources they offer to students. Following that will be Shaw and so forth, and so on and so forth. We'll figure out the schedule for that. But be on the lookout for that and be sure to share the resources so students know exactly what resources they have on campus and how to find them. The C-Store launch we had with the African American Cultural Center today, where we tabled to let students know that natural hair products are now available in the convenience store, and also just talk a little bit about what USG and African American Cultural Center do to support students. And then Daniel, my DEIA coordinator, is working right now on with Solid and CSD to make accessibility training a requirement for Solid, so student organizations are able to have that that educational aspect as well. And just to let everyone know, today is Domestic Violence Awareness Day, so that's why I have the purple ribbon. If you want any updates on that or are curious about those kind of updates, definitely seek some guys at the Women's Center. Dean of Students is also offering a couple of resources for that as well. So yeah, that's all I have for today.
Questions? Awesome. Next up, we have our Vice President, Marisa.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Hope you all have been doing well. The past few weeks, I've primarily been working on the retreat, which is this Saturday at 10:30 a.m. Hopefully, I see all of you there. We are going to have a part on campus in the morning, and then after that, we're going to escape rooms. So it'll be a really fun day. And there's some good food catered from Float Delight, some Thai food. So yeah, please be there. I've also been collaborating with the Dean of Students Office and student orgs to secure a Hindu prayer space, which is in its final stages of completion. We're doing some walkthroughs very soon next week, and working with the Dean on improving student advising and registration processes. I've also been attending the Student Enrollment Management Plan meetings and working with some folks on transition policy, the Connecticut Student Association, and the Legal Services Project. We're also shooting to get student governments across the state together sometime in January, and that's something we're super excited about. So thank you.
Any questions? All right, last but not least, Ms. Danny.
so just to echo a lot of other things, we've been working on legal services. Also, if anyone's interested in kind of getting involved with legal services and the work that we're doing, please let me know. We have our meetings on 3:30 on Fridays, 3:30 to 4:30. And right now, we're just kind of in the process of both trying to build a model of what we want the legal services to look like, and also what students want right now. Because I think that with the legal services, we're trying to figure out what kind of things the students want within these legal services, but then also what kind of model it looks like. So we're kind of in stages of kind of figuring those out. So if anyone is interested in also getting involved or helping with the outreach, because right now we just posted our legal services forum. So if anyone's interested in getting involved and helping with that kind of stuff, you can also feel free to let me know. Also with what JBL mentioned about the Food Advisory Council, that kind of came out of a place where, I guess, how many people here really love dining or love the food that comes out or something? Okay, well, we are kind of hoping that we can provide some more student input into the food that I think dining has, and also make sure that dining works with the students that they're feeding. Because I think that there's a lot of things around food. Oh, do you want to
I
make something?
remember last year at North Dining Hall, they actually had like a feedback section.
Yeah.
But I don't believe any other dining halls have that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I think that dining does annual feedback surveys that end every year, but I think that the relationship between dining and students can be a little bit more collaborative, and I think a lot of other universities have taken on models where they actively work with students to make sure that the restrictions of what students need are being met. And so I think that with the way that it currently works, if you have a gluten-free or you have a dairy restriction, right, it's really hard to kind of feel like you're going to get support on campus. And so currently, I think Jabril and I are going to meet with the director of dining tomorrow to kind of be part of that effort. You guys have a lot more face than just those four, and so I think that if we're going to create an integrated council that is truly representative of the student body, we need more face, we need more students represented. So if that's also something that you're interested in involved in, you can also message me or talk to me and let me know. I think two other things that I think is cool to talk about is because our organizational support services director isn't here and also our comms director isn't here, I can also talk a little bit about the work that they're doing. We have our comms team is basically almost hired right now, and so something that I think I was curious about as a center was I didn't really feel like I could interact with the rest of the org or interact with the comms team, and so something that I think I want you all to know and be aware of is that we have this comms request form that you can fill out if you ever want survey, if you want data. I can send you, we can send a link, or we can put some sort of the link in the chat. But if you're ever kind of interested in an idea, you want to get data on your initiative, let's say you have an idea, well, my initiative that I had that I wanted a comms request form was I wanted to survey students and see how they felt about a proposed change to a building meeting. And I had them make comms requests, I didn't make them fill a form, and it's really helpful for me to see, I think, where the student body felt. So if any of you are interested in creating some sort of comms request or having some sort of post made for a survey, for any kind of advocacy, because I know it can be kind of hard to connect with constituents, you can always be able to let me know what's in that format. The last thing I think that I'll talk briefly about is the anti-black racism course that's being talked about at the University Senate level. I think a few years ago in 2023, they were mandating that every student would have to graduate and take an anti-black racism course. And I think that that proposed motion passed back in 2023, but it will be implemented this fall. And so right now they're kind of discussing a few barriers and a few challenges of what it would look like to implement that class, because I think it's one of those classes that are like a weird gray area, right? Of like with the state of the federal administration where this kind of class would fall. And so the proposed motion would make it so that if you are a UConn student, you would have to kind of take this class to graduate. And so there's two main barriers to that class right now, which is why the implementation has been pushed off for a year. But currently they're discussing about both the funding for it, because it takes money to fund these classes, and so they're talking about how there's a funding challenge and how they're going to make sure this class is funded. But there's also a legal barrier of if we teach this class, will it be legal or illegal or not in this current state, right? And so I also just want everyone to be aware that the University Senate, the larger university setting, is kind of discussing about where this class will fall. And currently the implementation is pushed out for next year, so I think next year students, if they get the money, if they get the support for it, incoming students would have to take it. But that is something that should be on the radar that is happening right now on the broader university scale.
Are there any questions for Andy? All right, that is our final report, so we will move into our voting items. First up, we have the approval of the minutes from October 1st. Are there any questions, comments, points of discussion on these minutes? Seeing none, I will move to approve them by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? The minutes are approved. Next up, we have the confirmation of Jen Park to the position of off-campus senator. We have one off-campus senator seat that was vacant from the last election. Jen had been involved last fall, but had to step back because she was studying abroad last spring, and I'd really like to bring her back in. and Chairperson Lucas. Are there any questions or points of discussion on this nomination? All right, seeing none, I will move to confirm Jane by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? All right. And we also have the confirmation of Kirthi to the position of CLAS Senator. We have one CLAS Senate seat open up from a switch in constituencies, and Kirthi was next in line to receive a seat in the fall election, so I think it's only fair that they receive the seat now. Are there any questions or points of discussion on this nomination? All right, I will also move to confirm Kirthi by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? Congratulations. Next up, I will invite Andrea up to present. This is the USG Senator Attendance and Duties Enforcement Policy that we discussed at caucus last week. And I'll turn it over to Andrea.
Hello? Okay. Hi guys, sorry about that. So it's very simple. It's basically just saying that we want to work on attendance when it comes to caucus, Senate, and committee meetings. It's more of a way that I can keep track of who's actually participating and coming to like Senate, caucus, committee meetings, being engaged and everything like that. It basically goes through a process where it mentions how if a senator is absent more than 2 times without notice, it's more of a process that I start by reaching out to them, talking, and seeing if we can figure out why they're being absent. And then we give them 2 weeks after that to kind of like give me notice that they're, you know, the unexcused absences that they're not going to be here. And if there are any throughout that 2-time period, then that results in a possible removal. Bless you. Any appeals are usually can be made like if they're overturned by the Senate for 2/3. And then I don't know if you guys can see it on the yes. Okay, and removed senators can still remain eligible to run in future elections, but the same attendance enforcement measures will apply. I don't know if that makes sense. I think a lot of people were here last time for caucus when I explained it, but if there are any questions.
And just to reiterate, the motivation behind this is to make sure that our Senate is as engaged as possible and the health of students we represent, and also to ensure that students who want to be involved can be involved, because we have had issues where students have asked about getting involved and there aren't any seats that they're eligible for. So we want to make sure that the seats are being filled by students who are actively participating. It is not, intended to be disciplinary in nature. But yeah, are there any questions or points of discussion on this? Okay, seeing none, I will move to accept the Senator Attendance and Duties Enforcement Policy by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? All right, this policy is approved. Next up, I will invite Lily up to present amendments to the final USG programmatic budget for FY26.
Okay, hi everybody. I apologize. I know that we approved this last Senate meeting, but there were 2 changes that needs to be made that I'm going to go over today. Can I raise this just a second? This is fancy. Okay. Okay, so the 2 changes actually don't appear on the programmatic budget, but I'll go over in the operating budget. Essentially, the legal services line item that's under the student services budget area, originally the expense code was, I believe, 615.2 or 615.1, which is events and programs for the organization, contractual services for the organization. That needs to be changed to 615.2 after I had a conversation with professional staff, because it would make more sense for that line item to be contractual services for events and programs. So that's one change that needs to happen. And then 2 weeks ago, I forgot that under Phoenix's budget, we are submitting a PR for travel for a cultural learning community on campus. So as it stands, her expense code split under, which one is it? Outreach events and collaborations. There was no expense code split for travel. So what I did was I took $3,000 from 615.2, which is contractual services for events and programs, and I added it to expense code 624, which is travel. You can see that here. I know this is all very confusing, I apologize. You can see that here, so instead of it being, let's touch screen. Instead of it being 60,000 for 615.2, it's now 57,000. And that little 3,000 to the side, it's cut off in the green box, but goes to 624. So we're really voting to just approve the changes to the operating budget, but I wanted to include the programmatic budget as well because those columns have changed, even though it's reflected monetarily in the operating budget. Are there any questions? Okay, great.
All right, so just to be clear, we are not changing the amount of money that's being dedicated to any specific program or initiative, just how that money is being classified. Are there any questions or points of discussion? All right, we'll move into a hand vote to approve the programmatic budget. All those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed? Abstentions? That passes 28-0-4 with myself, Andrea, Nick, and Smith abstaining. And next up, we have the approval of amendments to the USG final operating budget for FY26. This is just reflecting the changes we made in the last document under the relevant expense codes. Does anyone have any questions, or would anyone like a further explanation of any of these changes? All right, any points of discussion? Okay, we'll move into another hand vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions? This passes 31-0-4. Me, Andrea, Nick, and Smith abstaining. Okay, that is our last voting item. I do want to raise one point of discussion. During Rika's presentation, I know we talked about a lot of different areas of the university, and that there was a lot of information that she did not have that people requested. So I wanted to ask, especially for our new people, which administrators would you like to see at future meetings? Which departments would you like to interact with? Really any suggestions or topics you'd like us to address? Floor is open. We'll go to Smith. Can we get some information, please?
Smith for the minutes. I think based on the discussion we had earlier, whoever's in charge of Red Flag should obviously come up in front of us and if we have some questions that they should answer.
Yes.
Absolutely. Anyone else?
Definitely Res Life. I have a couple questions. And also for like enrollment as well, like whoever's in charge of enrollment, because I feel like we should at least not over admitting people.
Tanner?
Yeah, there was somebody who came to external a couple weeks ago to talk about off-campus housing, and I think that's really important for a lot of the same reasons. So I feel like, and he explained it really, really well. So I feel like he'd be a good person to bring in. I forget his name
That's
off the top.
John Armstrong.
Yes,
One of our
John.
students. He is actually scheduled to come with Fani, not next meeting, but the one after.
Oh, no way, you read my mind. All right.
what was it, the dean of the library?
Oh, yeah.
Right,
Dean of the
maybe have
library.
him, see if he can explain.
Any other points of discussion? Sarah?
If you ever have questions about the buses and how they operate, would that also be John Armstrong?
That would be Andy Kelly from Facilities Logistics, but he is very responsive to us. I'm sure we could get him to come in.
Amazing, thank you.
Anyone else? Really?
Yes, I second all the, especially transportation and housing. And I would believe that, like, just maybe we already said dining as well.
Any other points of discussion? All right. Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Would whoever's in charge or the head of CSD, would they be able to come in?
Yes, absolutely. Any other points of discussion? All right, seeing none. Thank you all for the great suggestions. We'll definitely make some of those happen. Under announcements, we have the USG retreat that Haritha mentioned. That is this Saturday. The morning will be in the USG lounge, which is room 218 here, starting at 10:30. That is right next to the office. If you met with me in there, or know where that is. So yep, morning will be here, and we will have lunch catered here, and then transportation to the escape rooms provided. It's school buses, right?
Yep.
And then that will have us back in the afternoon at 5:45. If anyone has any questions or has not filled out the RSVP, please come up after the meeting. I'm happy to answer anything. And that is all. I will call to close at 7:48. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for coming.
I never started with that.